Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Three in the Keystone. It is episode 51. I have Al Ryan with me. Chris Guest currently absent, battling some computer issues. I think he's on the phone with the IT department. Al, what do you think?
You got the Geek Squad on the line. Remember
Yeah,
the Geek Squad?
the Geek Squad was
Best
nice. Well, Best Buy,
Buy,
wasn't it?
Best Buy Geek Squad. They ruined my computer one time. I brought it there, all these viruses, all this malware, and they ruined my computer. They said we can't fix it. That was it. That was that.
Was that a tower you had?
The tower. I was a big old gateway tower, man. Those big heavy things.
I was a tower guy for a long time. I held on to the tower.
So, dude, I remember bringing it up to Penn State with me freshman year.
Hold on, Chris may be coming in. He's coming in hot here.
Breaking news here.
Breaking news, Chris has arrived. The Geek Squad comes and saves the day.
I made it. Sorry about the delay, folks. Apologies.
So we have the full squad here. It is episode 51. We're going to call it. There was a couple options actually that came to my head right away.
Which one? Let me see if we're on the same page.
51 is actually a bullish number, but you got to go with one of the best nicknames in baseball. That's the big unit, Randy Johnson.
Yeah, that's an obvious one. How about that Terry Adams?
Oh, dude, Terry Adams.
Terry Adams. Come on, dude.
That's a rough one. Honorable mention to Ichiro.
Yeah, we can't not give love to Ichiro. You kidding
Well,
me?
yeah, of course.
I wanted to say this. When I was going through this earlier, there are a couple of guys when, even in any sport, when you go back to their reference page and look at their stats, it's almost comical. I was looking at Randy Johnson's statistics, and in today's MLB, like you guys know, 300 strikeouts does not really happen very often, especially as these pitchers pitch less and less into games. In 2001, Randy Johnson was 37 years old. He had 372 strikeouts.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
that's a joke.
That's
Joke.
When he was 40, he had 290. The guy was a machine.
I don't think we'll ever see that again.
Dude, what was it like when baseball was actually fun to watch?
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see
Like,
it.
I wish
Well, it
somebody
depends on what you like, though.
Well, from
Like,
the
pitchers,
no, but like, I wish somebody from the future could have told me back in the day, like, you're not going to see this again. There's never going to be these like 12 strikeout games and these guys mashing home runs left and right, hitting 300, hitting
complete
250.
games.
You're not going to have a leadoff hitter hitting 200 anymore, Al, once you turn in your 30s.
or a guy.
We'd be blessed to have him hitting 200.
Wait now.
Yeah, I was just say, or a guy like going past 100 pitches in a game. God forbid.
Yeah, I mean the game has changed completely, but basketball is completely different than it was when we were in high school, and that's
all different. It's all different.
I was watching earlier tonight. I was watching the Magic Bulls '95 playoffs, and people forget the Magic was the only team that beat Jordan in a series in the '90s.
True. It's very often brought up that Jordan went to 6 straight finals. I don't know why they don't. I understand he came back late in that season, but they don't even mention that he got.
It's like that season never happened. It's really strange.
To me, that's
that is the Jordan following.
Well, listen, guys, I want to pick your brains about something here. So we have a Chick-fil-A close to us on Baltimore Pike.
Love Chick-fil-A.
It's obviously, I mean, it's a go-to. We go there probably at least once a month, sometimes twice, right? It's quick, it's easy, the kids love it. In the last couple of years, now Chick-fil-A is known for its service, right? You go to Chick-fil-A, no matter how many cars are in that drive-through, you are speeding through that drive-through. You're getting about at least a dozen and a half. It's my pleasures thrown your way. In the last couple of years, ever since COVID, this particular Chick-fil-A near me, which is only 5 minutes away from my house, the service has gone to shit. I don't get any more. It's my pleasures. The line, no matter how long or short it is, I feel like I'm in there for a minimum half an hour. And in the last 6 months, they've messed my order up 3 times.
Wow.
And when you have kids, and I'm not talking about they gave me something different, like they substituted something. They straight up forgot parts of the order. And when you have kids, it is crucial that every nugget is accounted for. So this brings me to my question. We're in a day and age where like certain things are frowned upon and Karen culture is frowned upon, and saying, can I speak to your manager? It's almost like you're a brat or you're a baby if you utter those words. But at what point does it become necessary? Because I feel like I need to be speaking with the manager at this point.
So real quick. So I got a couple questions for you. One is obviously they got you by the balls because it's so close to your house.
Right.
So you really can't not go there.
Right.
The other thing is in the drive-through situation at Chick-fil-A, do you stay in the drive-through or do you just go in the store to get the food?
No, dude, I have 3 kids in the car. We're in the
Oh,
drive.
well, that's true. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. That's fair.
I haven't been
Um,
in a Chick-fil-A in forever.
Oh, I don't have a problem. I'll go in one in a minute. Like
I don't have a problem going in. I just haven't. Like I'll
yeah,
drive.
I find that same thing with Starbucks, and I don't go to Starbucks really that often at all. But the drive-through is so ridiculous. You get your food more often than not faster by just going in and getting it than waiting in line.
Sure.
But Al, to your point with the kids, it's a whole different ballgame. So I understand that. What I would say is I slightly disagree with you. Karen culture to me is when like you come in with the sense of entitlement. So perfect example. Sarah and I went to a restaurant that we go to pretty frequently in King of Prussia. I won't say the name of it, but I'll tell you guys off air.
Say the name of it.
And no, I'm not gonna do all that.
Does it rhyme
Because
with
I like it, so I don't want to bash it.
What, you
But
think you're listening?
does it rhyme with Smee's Cake Smackery?
Does it rhyme with Clark Faber?
no, that one's safe. So anyway, we go to a good amount, and last time we were there was about a month and a half ago. It was awful in every sense. We were waiting for a table when their whole basically it wasn't a peak time at all. Half the restaurant was empty. The server this restaurant prides itself on like the anti-inflammatory situation and eating people that have allergies and things like that. And the waitress didn't know that cheese was dairy. And we waited 10 minutes for waters. At that point, I'm very intuitive. So I was like, I'm not getting a good vibe from Shorty. So I want to move. So we moved, got a new waiter. The other waiter was probably like 18 years old. He had the old school pad out. Wrote it down, still forgot what we had ordered. He came back again and said, I'm so sorry. Can I please retake your? It was a mess. All right.
Did you ask to speak to the manager?
So what happened was I go at the end, I said, we're gonna bounce, we're just gonna get our drink and go. So at the end, I go to the manager and I say, hey, listen, I'm telling, and it's gonna sound corny, but you guys know how I am. I keep it real. I told him how I felt. I said, this comes from a place of love. But this restaurant tonight, you guys were off. And I broke down every single thing. And I said, we're going to be back. I'm going to give y'all time. We're going to be back. But it ain't going to be for a minute because y'all got some work to do. And the guy was very cool. He said, you know what? I appreciate the way you're coming to me. There's a lot of people that are new to that are new this week. So I was like, well, don't put them out there all at the same time.
Yes, you sound like Doc Rivers if he had a bad experience at a restaurant right now. We'll put them all there at the same time. Then you can't play the young guys together.
But I think that's important though, because when you approach people from a place of whether it's empathy or sympathy or whatever, I feel like they're more receptive to it versus being like, you guys suck. Tonight was this, that, and the third. Everything was awful. Who's the one in charge? Like when you go into it that way from a place of entitlement, yes, I think it's wrong. But if you go to it in a mature fashion where you're trying to be constructive, I have no problem with it.
Right. So you're on board. I can speak to the manager. Adam, what do you think?
I think you could speak to the manager, but depending on the manager's attitude, again, you're not looking at a upscale restaurant that necessarily takes that into consideration. Right. The guy at Chick-fil-A is going to be like, all right, that guy's out the door. Like this problem's done. Here's what you need to do, Al, if you want to get what you want. Tweet at Chick-fil-A.
Oh.
Say, had this experience
they're big on social
and they'll give you free coupons or stuff like that. They'll give you vouchers for free meals. And replace this stuff. Are you paying for that food that you're not getting?
Yeah. So yes. Yeah. And then by the time I realize I'm too far away to go back.
Right.
But wait a minute, I did tweet, and I had tweeted at establishments before, and part of the reason why I don't do it anymore is Diversa gives me so much shit every time I do it. He calls me a Karen.
Listen, no, that's not looking for the handout. No, that's not like I said, it's a Karen if you come from a disrespectful place of entitlement. Yeah, then that's a Karen. But if you're trying to just be like, hey man, you messed my kid's order up, like right the wrong. That's not being a Karen.
I agree with you. Chris, I'm with you. Like it's not a Karen. I'm not calling him a Karen. I'm saying
Oh no, I know.
Once he leaves, he goes out the door. That manager forgot everything that he said.
Absolutely.
And it's pointless to
Chick-fil-A.
have the conversation. Oh, I think
Fast
Al
food.
froze.
Absolutely.
I think you froze there. What'd you say?
Hello? I just said I agree with you. It's a fast food joint. I know what I'm getting. I'm not, we're not going to the Schmeats
But out of the
Factory
fast
like
food,
Chris.
out of the fast food chains, Chick-fil-A is I mean, from all accounts, they're very receptive
Yeah.
and open, transparent with
This
customers.
is an outlier. Like this is
Yeah.
this is not normal. I know that.
Now, don't get it twisted. Ain't nobody out here trying to be a sucker. If you come from that place of respect and you don't get respect back, then all bets are off. But I try to, like, for something like that, and I rarely ever do that. But that situation, because we like the restaurant so much, I was like, yo, guys, like, you need to get it together. Like, I don't know what happened tonight, but you guys dropped the ball, and put it in their court.
Our listeners might be thinking they don't know what happened listening to this podcast. They're not sure what this first segment's going to be.
Yeah, man, where are the Sixers at? This whack.
Little cleanup for you, for the listeners out there. Some housekeeping items. If you may be listening to this on Wednesday morning, this is a 1 week blip on the radar due to some scheduling conflicts. We will get back to our Tuesday schedule. Maybe next week. 4th of July is kind of in the mix there, but this will not be a regular thing. And also just want to wish our boy Chris a belated happy birthday.
Yeah, all kinds of birthdays to be celebrated, because next week we celebrate our birthday on the birth of America. So we got a lot of birthdays here.
A lot of birthdays coming up. But let's jump into segment one. Boys, we are a few days away from the beginning of NBA free agency. A lot of rumors about the Sixers, what they're going to do with James Harden. Are they going to make any deals? Other free agents that they're bringing back. I think at this point, we all don't have a ton of faith in this ownership based on what's happened the past 6 years and what's been put in place. And rather than making predictions and, stuff that we've already talked about, I want to go back in time. We've been eliminated in the second round. I believe it's 5 of the past 6 years. And there's been many, many missteps along the way. So I want to go back to some of the biggest mishaps that were out there and kind of go back in that moment and say, was this a really big mistake? Or are we just looking at it, hindsight's always 2020, and there were different things that maybe influenced the decision. So I want to each bring up a couple different mistakes that we look at now and say, God, did they screw that up? And determine the level of how big of a mistake it actually was. You guys on the same page there with what we're looking at?
Yeah. And unfortunately, one screw up is loading.
Is what?
Is loading currently.
Oh, and that's where we take this conversation, because the James Harden contract, depending on how it is, could very well be a part of this list in a few years. But I'll throw it to Al first. I know he had a couple, and let's start there.
You guys know me. You know where I'm going to go with this. It's got to be. You have to start here. I won't sit here and say that drafting Ben Simmons was the mistake, because when you look back at that year, he was the number 1 pick. No matter who got that pick, they were going to take Ben Simmons first overall, whether or not I agree with it or not. Not trading Ben Simmons sooner, to me, was a massive error on the part of the 76ers. And we see where it has led us, where we're in the situation we are in now, because by the time we did decide to finally move on, we're stuck with James Harden, and potentially stuck with signing him to a max deal. But I know we'll get to that later. So here are just some of the trades that were maybe not possibilities, but at least were mentioned at one point or another by someone out there in the sports universe.
This is prior to the Harden trade.
This is prior to Harden. Okay. So at one point or another, these are the names that were kicked around. These are the deals for Ben Simmons: Lauri Markkanen and a first rounder, Brandon Ingram and a first rounder, De'Aaron Fox, Shea Gill, Lou Will and a first rounder, and potentially, which I think might have been the best one of all of them, sending him to Boston. And a lot of people were saying that they were going to do a deal centered around Jaylen Brown. But just the thought of having Ben Simmons screw that franchise up, like, what a win that would have been to have Ben Simmons in Celtic green. But think about the guys I just named, and we ended up with James Harden. Like, that is just an absolute travesty.
But Al, the way that history is and the way the city is, if we did trade him to Boston, they would have won a ring. He would have been an MVP, and he would have been a top 5 player in the league.
Yeah, that would have been it for me. See you later. That's it. No more basketball for me.
So I want to disagree with you a little bit, Al. And obviously, Ben Simmons turned out to be a disaster. And I think this is kind of part of the exercise here. But if you look at it, in 2019, he signs his contract extension, the max 5-year, I think it was $170 million at the time. He's a three-time All-Star. He's a third-team All-Defense. He's a Rookie of the Year. And he's 22 years old at the time, 23 years old at the time. I think we hadn't seen the guy that turned out in 2021 just seemed to be a different guy than we originally had. And there were certain, I guess, signs that you may have seen along the way. You know, he wasn't great in the 2019 playoffs, 2020 playoffs, he was hurt. But before the actual collapse, I think there was still hope for Ben Simmons. There were still a lot of Ben Simmons people. I know you weren't one of them, but I was, that thought this guy could still be great. And, you know, you mentioned a lot of names, Markkanen and Fox, but like those guys weren't great at that time. And if we would have made that deal, yeah, I mean, again, hindsight's always 2020. It would have been a good deal. But in that moment, I think we all would have been upset if they traded him for Lauri Markkanen and a first-round pick.
I agree that we probably would have said at the time that we were getting 80 cents on the dollar or whatever. You know what I mean? But I hate when people bring up the accolades, because let's be honest here. Ben Simmons stole Rookie of the Year from Donovan Mitchell. At least should have been a share, if anything, if nothing else. All those stupid defensive teams, he snuck on like the third team All NBA all those years. Like, that's bullshit, man. Like, that's all voted on by what, the media or whatever else, players making it on all-star teams. Like, he's making it as a sub. He's not making it as a starter. This is all like, it's all BS just to prop up his resume. Because let's face it, he was one of the darlings of the league.
So what would you say, like, what would have been an adequate stat line for Ben Simmons to be those, like, again, like I look at his stats and they're not, but he was 17, 9, and 8 and an all defensive league player. Like he was
6'10" point guard. The length was crazy.
He had the same amount of threes as you and I did in his first 2 years.
I know that was the red flag. That's what it's always been, is the shooting, and it got worse. Obviously, you look at some of his summer league or even beginning of his rookie year, he was at least willing to shoot the ball, not from three, but at least outside the paint. And then that just got worse and worse as time went on. And obviously should have been a red flag, but his numbers, at least in the regular season, for those first 3 years were pretty good.
I've still been a person that's driven the conspiracy theory bus on the fact that I feel like ever since he came down on a jumper on Sean Long's foot in that practice before his rookie year, he has not shot the ball. If you remember his summer league action before he played an actual official game, he was doing mid-range jumpers. He was shooting from the elbow. He was doing things. After he got hurt, when he came back, he did not want to shoot again. And I can't help but to wonder if that played a part of it.
I mean, it's his whole makeup. He's a baby. We know this about him. He goes to LSU because his uncle's the coach. He doesn't want it to. He never wanted to face any type of pushback. He wanted the easy path his whole life,
and he's gotten it. Unfortunately for him, until now.
Yeah, we have a bunch of them. So go ahead, finish up with your final thoughts.
Well, are we giving this the?
Oh yeah. So I want to say, give it a level of how bad of a violation it was. So is it probation, 5 years in jail, a life sentence, or are we giving the Sixers the chair for not trading Ben Simmons sooner? For me, it's probation.
It's absolutely probation. Nobody would have passed on Ben Simmons in 2016 in that draft. Nobody.
Well, I think we're talking more like 2019, 2020-ish.
But the decision now it's talking about though was to draft him. Is it not? Is that
no?
Not
it's not to
no. I said the opposite. I said it's not to draft. It was not to trade him sooner. Was the bad decision.
I would still say probation, because like Celtics said at the time, those trades would have been very questionable at best. Now, a big part of being a GM and a successful one is having the ability to look forward and to project talent and to project fit and all that kind of that stuff. More so than anybody else. There's a saying how, like, if you're a GM or you run a team and you listen to the fans, it's a matter of time before you're sitting with them. So I he should have had the ability to see beyond what most of us saw as far as those trades are concerned. But man, I mean, you still, when you did trade him, you still got an all NBA 75 all-time dude.
But that was lucky, right? Because it's also James Harden was forcing his way out of Brooklyn at the same time.
That's part of it.
That's part of it.
That those paths cross. But I know we have to wrap it up. I subjectively want to give the Sixers the chair. I want to give them the chair twice. Objectively, I'll say probably in between that 5-year and life sentence. And here's why. Because, Chris, when you're in the front office and you're in the organization and you're a player on that team and you're a coach on that team, you're with these players day to day, right? Have you ever heard of a positive story about Ben Simmons in camp, at practice, around the guys? You never have. He was a pain in the ass cancer for how many years? No one liked him. He was obviously pulling this baby shit for years. He had to be driving everybody up the wall. They had to have seen the signs that he was never going to pan out. We read that book, guys. I know, Adam, you're the one that told me to read it, where it says that practices, when he was getting told to work on his free throws, he was shooting them behind his back and closing his eyes and shit, making a mockery of it. When you see that, like that's the way the guy is off the court, like away from the camera, then that's how he is. You've said it, Chris. He's showing you his true self. Yeah. So why did we sit there for 5 years and not come to the senses that like this guy's not going to pan out? Let's get what we can.
Al, I think it's simple. Nobody wanted to be the GM that traded Ben Simmons and watched him become a perennial everything, and they had him in their backyard. I think that's as simple as it gets, honestly.
Then I need some grown-ups in the war room. Then that's what I need.
I mean, a 6'10" point guard with those skills that can defend any from 1 to 5. Averages close to 9 or 10 assists a game, 9 or 10 rebounds. The only flaw he had was the dude just never wanted to shoot the ball.
Yeah, in a league would
still average 16
a game.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to defend the guy because I can't say it like you can. But from the perspective of management at that point in time, I honestly don't know if I would have done any different. So therefore I have to get the probation.
I'm with you, Chris. But let's go to you, Chris. Give us another one of your mistakes here along the way.
So we're still looking for a 3 a 3-and-D guy that you could put in the starting lineup that can give you 20 plus points a game. And he was in our backyard literally through high school, through college, and his mama worked in the organization and they drafted him and somehow found a way to trade Mikal Bridges for Brett Brown's second coming of Kawhi Leonard, Zaire Smith, who is now currently acting as a recruiter for Texas Tech and is not even in basketball. That to me is a death penalty flaw, a mistake that this organization made. First of all, they let Brett Brown have the keys to the kingdom for that summer, and that's what happened. So on that alone, it's terminable as far as his job was concerned, as far as I was, in my opinion. But we're still looking for that guy, and we had him. Imagine this team with Bridges on it.
Yeah, 100%. It's on my list. They end up with the number 10 pick in that year's draft because Sam Hinkie. We talk about foresight. Sam Hinkie had the foresight to trade Michael Carter Williams.
Right.
For a first-round pick from the Lakers, and actually got a little unlucky. I was looking into details. That trade only had top 3 protection on it, and for the first 2 years of that trade, the Lakers actually fell in the top 3. That pick could have easily been the 4th or 5th pick in the draft if things fell right for the Sixers. Ends up being the number 10 pick. They take Mikal Bridges, then they trade him for Zaire Smith and a future first-round pick, which they end up shipping in the Tobias Harris trade. But yeah, no, it's.
I mean, that's one of the worst trades in NBA draft history, let alone the Sixers. That's got to be top 2 or 3 of all time.
I mean, it's probably right up there with Kobe for Vlade, I would say.
It's got to be. It's got to be. Like this guy, I mean, and it's not Zaire's fault, but the guy literally almost died from a peanut allergy when he was here at one point in time. Never could get his legs under him. From between that and just the rigmarole of the NBA, he couldn't catch up with it. And he just never even looked like a comfortable NBA player. And here we have Mikal Bridges, who's now currently, whether it's, by default or otherwise, for all intents and purposes, the franchise guy on an NBA team.
Yeah, he's a top 40 player in the NBA.
No question.
Yeah.
And here's what's crazy too. They take Zaire Smith over DiVincenzo, Lonnie Walker IV, Kevin Herter, Grayson Allen, Anthony Simons. So there was talent.
Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, Robert Williams III.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be a death penalty for me.
Yeah,
that's one of, you ever see Man on Fire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you, Chris.
I wish you had more time.
When Creasy says at the end, he's like, gives him the bullet, and he's like, "It didn't work for me. Maybe it'll work for you." That's what I would tell them, that front office at that point, after that trade.
Well, that is what happened to Brett Brown, at least.
I'm with you. Let's give it the death penalty. Al?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, why not? Let's all agree here.
Okay. I'm going to go a little more under the radar. There's some other obvious ones, but I want to save them for a little bit later. 2021. The Sixers again end up losing to the Atlanta Hawks in the playoffs. We all know the Ben Simmons debacle. But it's a great regular season. It's the only year they ended up being the #1 seed. They had brought in Daryl Morey at the time. They were running out a starting five of Ben, Seth, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. They get the perfect draw in the playoffs. They get the Wizards in the first round, then followed up by the Hawks. For all the talk of us not being able to get to a conference final, it was clear as could be that the path. I mean, neither of those teams should be able to play with the Sixers. And obviously the Ben Simmons issue ends up happening. But I want to rewind that season a little bit and take you to the trade deadline of that season. When you look at the bench of that team, it was Matisse Thybulle, who was playing a lot in his second year, but had obvious flaws. It was Furkan Korkmaz, who was playing a lot, but had obvious flaws. It was Tyrese Maxey as a rookie, didn't know what you were going to get from him completely. And it was Dwight Howard. There was an obvious need for an upgrade on that team to make it a championship contender. And who do we end up trading for at the trade deadline that year? George Hill.
Who was awful.
He was terrible.
Terrible.
Here are some other names. Here are some players who got traded the trade deadline that year. And again, I don't have salaries all in front of me of what we could have dealt or this and that. Victor Oladipo, Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, Lou Williams, Gary Trent, Norman Powell. Other names who didn't get moved that were on the trade block: Kyle Lowry, Lonzo Ball, John Collins. For a team that needed, when Ben Simmons imploded, another option to go to, this team never fortified itself. And for that reason, not above the Ben Simmons, but as part of the Ben Simmons, the George Hill trade was just not the answer, and it was not enough for that team, which could have gotten to the finals if they had added a better piece or someone who they could put in for Ben Simmons that could contribute. Because all of those other bench guys in the playoffs failed, with the exception of Tyrese Maxey, who Doc was still scared to play in the playoffs.
I wanted to say real quick. So Norman Powell was the guy I wanted that year. But
Me too. We talked about that.
I'm going to say probation on this, only because the move that they didn't make, which was getting Kyle Lowry for Tyrese Maxey. That would have been even worse if they made that move in hindsight.
That would have been worse, but does Kyle Lowry, being able to put Kyle Lowry as the point guard, does that help you beat the Atlanta Hawks?
No, I don't think so, because then you sort of had an awkward fit with him and Ben.
I'm saying, but with Ben's implosion, could you have put Ben on the bench? They didn't have anybody to put Ben on the bench for.
Right. No, I either way, that trade would have been devastating long term for this organization. I think we would have been watching Maxey just kill it, and still within our division and our conference at that. That would have been rough. So because they didn't make that trade, I got to give them, benefit of the doubt that I would just do the probation. But the George Hill move was awful. Don't get it. Don't. That was a terrible trade. He was a terrible asset that we acquired. He did nothing. The guy couldn't jump over a freaking phone book.
He was so bad.
And he was terrible.
I give him 5 years.
Chris, that was a good point though, because a lot of people were all in on that Maxey deal for Lowry that year.
Right.
A lot of the fan base was all in on that. And that might get you over the Atlanta Hawks hump. That doesn't guarantee you beating the Bucks in the finals in the Eastern Conference or
Agreed.
beating the Phoenix Suns in the finals of the NBA finals. I mean, so at the end of the day, Chris, you making that point made me change my mind a little bit about what I was initially going to say. So I probably am also going to give them probation because I think Ben Simmons just screwed them so bad that year it wasn't going to matter what happened.
Okay, that's fair. I'm going to go 5 years because again,
And
I think they had a chance to be better.
I was gonna say real quick, being at that game 7, if he had, I think about that literally like still weekly, at least. If he had made that layup or that dunk, that place was ready to like literally. I'll never forget it. Everybody was on their feet, ready to cheer, and just literally was like, "Yo, what did he just do?" I've never seen anything like that before that nor since, and I always feel like if it went the way it was supposed to go, with him dunking that ball with emphasis, that might have been the dagger on the Hawks in that series and in that game. But
would it have been worse if he went up and attempted a layup and missed?
No, actually, it was nothing was worse than what happened.
No, that would have been funnier at the end. Like
Well,
that
yeah,
would have been funnier, but it would have been worse. Nothing was worse than what he actually did.
Yeah.
Unless he just fumbled it out of bounds. That would have been
and then to pass it to Thibault of all people.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's like LeBron passing it to me under the basket. Like, what am I gonna do with it, bro?
That's like a tree passing it to a rock. That's what that
It's the stupidest pass ever.
If you look at the NBA 2K ratings from that year, I bet those are the two worst offensive players in the game.
Dude. And Thibault even looked like, bro, what are you passing it to me? What are you doing?
Everybody did.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to Al. Let's run through one more each here.
Yeah. All right. So my second one is signing Tobias to the 5-year max in 2019. We know that he got 5 years, $180 million. It seems like it was a 15-year deal. Seems like he's been on the Sixers forever. And so just a real quick rundown of other notable free agent signings that year that we potentially, I mean, some of these guys obviously we potentially could not have gotten, but here are the other guys that were notable. Chris Middleton, 5 years, $178 million. Porzingis, 5 years, $158. Jamal Murray, 5 years, $170. Nikola Vucevic, 4 years, $100. Malcolm Brogdon, 4 years, $85. Bojan Bogdanovic, 4 years, $73. Julius Randle, dubious handles, 3 years, $63. Caruso, 2 for $5.5. Ivica Zubac, 4 for $28.
Dude, Shaka Zulu.
KCP, 2 for $16. And Rashawn Holmes, 2 for $10.
Hey, Zubac's had that like 35 and 25 game or wherever the hell that was.
No, and honestly, my reason for naming so many guys just then, some of those mid-level and lower tier guys, is because look at what we could have got instead of Tobias. Like we could have potentially gotten 2 or 3 guys that would have put us in such a better position over the next 5 years than Tobias Harris did.
Well, first of all, Tobias is an assassin scorer. In case you,
I mean,
didn't know that.
I literally laughed out loud when I read that story when it first came out. That's hilarious.
I'm going to still say 5 years on this because, again, when you go back in retrospect, they were put in a situation where they made the trade to get Jimmy Butler that year. They made the trade to get Tobias Harris to go all in, and they both were free agents at the end of that season. And Jimmy leaves them hanging, and they're all of a sudden in this boat where, oh my God, we traded all these assets and now we're going to lose both of these guys. And they got bullied is what happened because they didn't want to lose both guys. And they hand out the terrible contract that ends up hurting them in the long run. But if you're in the GM's shoes, again, you got to look at it as, if I lose both of these guys, how can that happen to me and what's going to happen, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, it wouldn't have been that bad because if you look at the 2 trades they made, they didn't really give up a lot.
No, Boban, like what are we talking about?
Well, no, the Boban.
As far as leaving, I'm saying as far
Boban.
but I'm saying as far as like other guys other assets they acquired that they weren't going to bring back in addition to Tobias.
I was talking more about the guys they gave up to get those guys, like Covington, Saric, Bayless. Those were for Jimmy Butler, and then the trade for Tobias was what Shamet,
Boban, Tobias,
and Wilson Chandler, I think.
Yeah.
Wilson Chandler was the contract filler.
Yeah.
For me, though, it's not so much Tobias; it's the money.
For sure, it's a terrible contract.
Just cut them off at the knees for 5 years. It was awful.
It's a terrible contract. Everybody knows it is. It's just that they're bad. They were between a rock and a hard place. Not to steal what you said earlier, between a rock and a tree. They were stuck.
Yeah.
But I still would give that a life sentence because of the fact that we had Jimmy Butler in our building, and you can't talk about Tobias without talking about Jimmy in the same sentence based on what happened that summer. And we all know the Sixers hitched their wagon to Tobias Harris and Brett Brown and Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler and basically what their superstar Joel Embiid wanted, which was Jimmy Butler. So that's a life sentence penalty for me. Obviously, the money that they had to give Tobias at that point is even worse, which is basically like, all right, well, I already commit one murder. I might as well do a double murder. That's pretty much how I looked at that because they already, to your point, Seltzer, had already kind of got screwed around by the whole Jimmy thing. As it's been told, they asked Jimmy to not talk to any other teams and they would give him the max or at least negotiate the max. He refused to be pigeonholed, and the rest is history. And then at that point, the Sixers have to pivot to Tobias. They have to overpay him. And of course, that set us back literally at this point at least 4 years.
So I have another one on my list that I'm not going to end up saying, but it kind of ties in with what we're talking about here. Hiring Elton Brand as the GM, he wasn't ready for the job.
And what is he doing right now? Like, is he like the Howie Roseman when Chip was here? Is he in like the janitor closet?
He's catering. He's bringing in the catered meals for the
like
meeting.
what is? I mean, they don't even have the brother on the press conferences anymore. I don't think I haven't seen Elton Brand in like 3 years.
He's cashing checks. But look, he had a terrible offseason in 2019. I'm sure we'll have to talk about some other moves in a minute. But he gets brought on board after the Colangelo fiasco, and he just wasn't ready to handle the job. And again, he got bullied at the end of the day.
I think the organization knew that. They had to put somebody out there that was a friendly face, that if he crashed and burned, it's like, oh, well, look, it was Elton Brand. It wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yep. All right. Chris, go ahead for your next one.
So I guess I'll go. We can't really have this segment without mentioning Markelle Fultz. My thing is, he was just like Ben, he was a perennial first pick in that draft. The issue I have with the Sixers is, aside from Colangelo obviously being a scumbag, when Markelle came in after the trade was done and came in that midnight flight or Uber or whatever the hell that they gave him to get to Camden for the pre-draft workout, and he was terrible to the point where NBA scouts who were there for the organization told Colangelo, yo, I don't like it. It gave them second thoughts, and he still pulled the trigger on it. I think that hurt us a lot. And of course it carried into the season and his career. He's just now starting to finally take positive strides. He's not in the same boat as Ben. I think he's at this point played above where Ben is in his career currently, not overall as far as his accolades, but just his current skill set right now. I think I'd rather have Markelle Fultz on my team than Ben Simmons at this moment in time.
Absolutely.
But when it went down originally on that in that span of whatever it was, that few days or that week prior to the draft, dude, I mean, they were saying this guy was like apparently the first I saw was an air ball, all kind of stuff was going on. For those guys to get paid and have that as their career, to look at the talent level of these players and to tell the GM like something's not right, and for him to just dismiss it and say you're either in or you're out, meaning like to the scouts. At that point, it's like Succession now, right? It's like if you're in Logan Roy's, one of his henchmen, you got to be a yes man.
Yep.
And that's what those guys were for Colangelo. They were yes men, and they just went along with it, even though they did not agree with it. And it came back to bite us.
But it did seem like he was such the missing piece at the time when you looked at the college film, and you had Embiid and you had Simmons, and he was the scoring guard. Again, you look at what Tyrese Maxey is now, and Fultz was that in a bigger frame. Like that's what you imagine Fultz would be. He would, 6'4", but when you play with him now, he's strong. He could get in the paint. He could score. He could go through contact. He was Tyrese Maxey, but
right.
better. That's
what
what
he showed you. He showed you who he was at that point in time at that pre-draft workout. And it's like, to me, it's like if you're trying to find, you're accusing somebody of murder and you go in their house and you find the smoking gun and you still try to defend the guy and say he did, or whoever it was, and say they didn't do it. The guy literally told you he wasn't ready to be an NBA player. He wasn't ready to fill that role. He wasn't ready to really contribute at all in the league at that point in time in the very beginning. And you still took him, knowing that he wasn't going to be, or at least wasn't showing that he was capable of being that star that you needed. Now, forget about an NBA player. He wasn't, he was drafted to be a star. Number 1 overall pick. You are being drafted to be a cornerstone of your franchise. And he did not show he was capable of that at that point in time, nor still has he. And they still pulled the trigger on it.
But didn't, like, this is the same argument though that I make that I was making about Ben Simmons. Like can't you say these same things about Ben Simmons, but over the course of 5 years where he was in your building? You know what I mean? Like with Fultz, it was like we got to make this decision based on seeing him for 2 days in Chicago and interviewing the kid 2 or 3 times.
But with Ben, you're locked in already, right? Like Chris is saying, you had the opportunity to pass on this kid,
right?
And
it's like buying a house and you know that there's water damage, but you love it so much, and you're like, well, we'll figure it out. And then you buy it, and then you have water damage.
Yeah, but Ben Simmons was like buying a house and flipping it. Nobody knows about the water damage except you. Maybe you don't. Maybe you lie about it. You don't put it on the sheet.
But again, I think it's kind of like, the abusive boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever you want to say it. It's like Ben Simmons. Again, we talked the accolades. He's lazy. He's not doing the work. But look at what he's still giving us. Like, if we can just get more out of him, if we can make him mature as he gets older and let him see these things, like he'll become this complete star, because he's doing X right now without giving any effort. And like, you could talk yourself into that.
I mean, just looking at Marco Fultz again, look, when we saw his tape in college and looking at his numbers, I could talk myself into that all day too, though. That's the thing. That's why I'm defending Markel. And
the thing with Fultz is like, yeah, we can talk about the maturity, we can talk about the workout, but something happened to him physically that changed,
and mentally.
Right. That changed the projection of everything moving forward with him. And it's difficult to project.
The other thing too, though, is I know Washington's not necessarily some kind of powerhouse in the landscape of college basketball, but the Sixers went out and drafted 2 losers back to back with those number 1 picks. Neither of those 2 guys made the NCAA tournament.
Well, it's a loser franchise, the Sixers. So what else would you expect? But I'd still go 5 years on that. I'm not willing to go any more than that, because a lot of people were on board with the Fultz pick.
Yeah, I'm going probation because the same reason. There was no one that was saying it was going to be anyone else.
But to be fair, like, I mean, my wife famously has it recorded when we drafted Fultz and me cheering for it still on her phone. But we weren't privy to that information at that time as fans.
Yeah.
They, as an organization, as a GM, as a scouting department, as coaches, they knew this guy was a shell of what they had saw 3 months prior in his last game at Washington. They knew he was not the same dude. Yeah. And they still went for it.
I also just think it looks a lot worse, Chris, because we can play. Obviously, we know what happened with Jason Tatum. We know what's happening with Jason Tatum and De'Aaron Fox and Larry Markkinen, who were all picked right after him. So there was like a treasure trove of dudes right there, but none of them were ever in contention to get drafted first overall by the Sixers, at least.
All right, so I'll take it for the last one. You guys left 2 obvious ones on the board, and I can only give you one. I'm going to skip. Listen, the most obvious error that this team made was letting Jimmy Butler go, and I think we're all on board with that. But I'm gonna skip that one. But I think we all can agree.
Yeah, that ties into signing Tobias.
Yeah.
Okay,
but you can say that either way, right?
That's fine. We can tie that in there. But I'm just we haven't mentioned Jimmy Butler, so I just want to at least make reference that we know that that's a huge mistake. I'll go with the Al Horford contract.
Yeah, that's on my. That was.
Yeah.
Al Horford, 4 years, $109 million. Again, that's that offseason when they lose Jimmy Butler and they sign Tobias. Al Horford was going into his age 33 season. So had the Sixers kept him, that contract would just be expiring this offseason. He came in, averaged 12 points per game. He shot 35% from 3, which seems like it's higher than it should have been.
Honestly, I didn't think he was that high.
That's shocking to me, to be honest with you. Career low, I believe 76% from the free throw line. And I mean, the guy just didn't rebound. He didn't play defense. They overreacted. They overreacted in the 2019 playoffs because of, Game 7, Joel Embiid plays 45 minutes and is like a plus 8, I think, during that game. And in 3 minutes, he's out. He's like a -9. The Sixers are -9, and they overemphasized this center position, and they signed Horford to this monster contract. Chris, you and I spoke that offseason. We were both wanted Malcolm Brogdon, if you remember, because we thought that we needed another guard before we needed another center. The Horford minutes with Embiid become a complete disaster. They end up having to trade a first-round pick to Oklahoma City just to get off of the Al Horford contract, which is, I believe, is a 2025 first-round pick. So they haven't even paid that yet.
Yeah.
It's coming up in 2 years, and the entire, and not only that, he ends up going back to Boston and then killing us again.
Yeah, he was a rat. I'm convinced he was a rat. It was a plant job. Came in to mess us up from the inside out. But one of those things, again, Celtics, you said about the Sixers as being an organization that just keeps messing up, and I don't know if I'd call them a loser organization as much as you did, but they are one that just continue to make questionable, stupid decisions. And that was one where they were like, you know what? Of all guys, we should look at Al Horford and force him to fit in here because he is a Sixer killer. So let's add him to our team, even though he doesn't fit, because it's better to work that out and figure it out than to deal with him on Boston another year.
And then they have to slide Tobias Harris to the small forward, which he's not. So
Right.
he's playing out of position. Horford's playing out of position probably at the time because he's much better as a 5, I would say, at least in small doses. And then, of course, they bring in Josh Richardson, who can't shoot a lick either. And they have Ben Simmons. They literally have no shooting on the floor or spacing. And that season was just an entire disaster. And that was the Elton Brand off season.
Right.
It's a life sentence for me, but if we can throw in, nobody mentioned the fact that we had to be introduced to Anna Horford. That bumps it up to the chair for me.
Yeah, man. You know what? That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm still gonna go life sentence. I'm not gonna give him the chair for that.
We're still paying that debt because
Yeah,
she's still out there talking about Philly stuff.
Still runs her mouth.
The sickening thing about it, man, is like they signed a contract. I knew it was a terrible contract. We talked about it because we hated it, but in like a week we talk ourselves into it. We're like, oh, this could work. Bully ball, hope we'll never have a backup center. We'll never have to watch Amir Johnson or Greg Monroe or Boban play again. And it's just
it's hard, man. It's hard being a Sixer fan, dude.
Really, really is.
Hard.
So listen, free agency opens next week. I'm sure we're gonna have moves to talk about for the Sixers.
And we'll have this section 2.0 in next segment.
Yeah, because my bonus transgression here is not trading Joel Embiid right now. Right now, today.
Oh, I love that take.
See, Al's having the foresight right now.
I've been on that board too. Like I'm completely on board with shopping him.
See the board clearly.
It's got to be a special offer, man.
We're gonna have this same conversation in however many years you want to call it, Chris. When we're saying, oh, we could have gotten X, Y, and Z for Joel, but instead we got Lou Dort.
Well, I've told you guys before, my season tickets are on the line. If they give this dude 4 years, I can't do it. They can't get any more of my money out of it. I got to bounce.
That's where the golf habit will.
Let's do this just in case something goes down between now and the next pod, the birthday pod. What are we doing with James Harden? What are your predictions right now?
What do I want, or what do I think?
What's your prediction? What's going to happen?
2 years with a player option for a 3rd year. Let's say 2 years, $68 million. So I'm saying like $34 million.
So if that's the case, what's the point of him even declining the option? Because the option is more for next year than that would have been.
Yeah, but still guaranteed money.
For an extra year
down the line.
Yeah, the extra year.
So you give a little back.
To be worth $35 million in 2025.
I don't know. I don't know if he.
That's a red flag too. Then
if he couldn't get it this year, again, teams don't have. The teams that have cap space every year are rebuilding teams. It seems.
Who needs a guy like James Harden on their team?
Nobody.
Yeah, no one.
It sounds like I think it was Chris Haynes. I think it was that I read that he said the market's kind of dwindling down. Houston is still interested, even though they drafted Amen Thompson. But nobody's kicking the door down by any means. And it sounds like the Sixers are already planning moving ahead like he's going to be here.
Yeah.
And
And
everything
he
I
also
read,
talks directly to Maury because he doesn't really do it. Apparently, he has consulting agents. He does not have a full-time agent, James Harden. So he has a group of agents he consults with, but none that he actually is on that's on his payroll per se, full time. And he has a direct line to Maury.
Yeah, Chris, you know who these agents are? It's Candy, Tiffany,
Yeah.
it's all the girls down.
Yeah, Moonlight.
Yeah.
all right, so we will check in on that next week, but we're going to move on to segment 2, where we want to talk about teams that have bright futures in the NBA. And the NBA draft was last week, so we'll go over a couple of the top picks as well as a couple of the trades that happened last week that will affect the Sixers. We'll be right back. Welcome back to segment 2. The NBA draft was last week, and gents, the top 3 picks, at least in the draft, are considered to be superstar prospects. So I thought it would be an interesting segment for us to look both ways. Let's look at what's this guy's potential if he hits everything, what is his ceiling, and what happens if he bottoms out. So I wanted to do player comparisons of ceiling and floor for at least the top 3 picks. And then I want to touch on the Kristaps Porzingis trade, obviously, because that does affect the Sixers. But let's start with the draft prospects. And the number 1 pick has been highly touted for at least a year and a half or 2 years at this point. Victor Wembanyama ends up going to the Spurs with the number 1 pick. Let's go to Chris first. Chris, give me this guy's ceiling on what he could become, and give me his floor for comparison if all else fails.
I mean, we always hear the phrase "the sky is the limit," and for Wembanyama, I truly believe, and this is I truly believe he could develop into a top 5 player of all time. I really believe that. Nobody has ever seen his skill set, and if he comes in now, averaging, I believe he led the I'm going blank right now on what league that was.
The French league,
The French league, yeah. Which is so he led the league in scoring at 22 points a game. But you got to remember too, those leagues in Europe, it's almost like college. Like those are tough defensive. Like there's no pretty basketball in those leagues. So 22 is more like probably closer to 30 in the NBA standards, as far as the conversion is concerned. But I mean, he's got like the defense of Gobert and Embiid, with the jump shot of Durant, with the maturity of Tim Duncan, and all that. Like, I can't, like, it was one of the few drafts where I watched it and I truly was envious of the Spurs. I mean, that guy is going to be a legend. I really feel like he's going to be special.
So who's your player comparison?
I don't have one.
Top 5 player that you're saying?
I think Victor Wembanyama is his comparison. I think he can be his own guy.
Okay. What's your floor? What happens if all goes bad?
I mean, I guess I don't know, because honestly, I don't see. I feel like he's bust proof. I know people are worried about the size and all this kind of stuff as far as his weight is concerned, but I had that same concern in 07 with Durant, and look how that turned out. I can't be worried about that. The guy had a great, really mature take on it at the draft when he said, "I need to get not bigger, but just overall just get more strong, more sturdy." And you don't have to get bulkier to get stronger. So I think he can still go to the league and be successful in the league at his size. I mean, as far as his weight goes, and he's 19. He might still not be done growing.
Wow. All right, Al, what do you got?
I know that the league has gotten bigger, and we're talking about aliens at this point, where we have point guards that are 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", KD 6'11", right? KD's 7 feet in sneakers, but he says like he likes to call himself 6'11", right? There comes a point, though, in my opinion, where you're too tall. I think he's too tall. I think 7'5" is too big for the style of basketball that he wants to try and play in the NBA, in a league where there are 9 other guys just as, if not more, athletic, fast, quick than he is. I am not sold on Victor Wembanyama being a generational talent. I am not sold on him being a future Hall of Famer or even a guy that's going to lead his franchise, the San Antonio Spurs, at this point to an NBA title. I see a very good to great stretch 5, but Chris, he's barely 200 pounds. I know we're going to talk about him. Kristaps Porzingis is 240, and he looks
Come
like.
on, don't be disrespectful.
No, I'm just talking
Don't
about
be disrespectful to dude.
weight comparison. I'm talking about a guy that's Porzingis is what, 7'1", 7'2", 240, and now you add 3 inches and you take 40 pounds off. This kid's going to get dominated in the paint. He's
early
not
on.
He's not going to go into the paint.
Wait a minute. What is he playing against? The 13-year-olds in France? He's playing against a lot of guys who are former. His biggest game was against a team that had 7 former NBA players. Let's not act like he's playing against scrubs.
But let's not act like he's playing against those guys 82 games a year on back-to-backs. Like, dude, he said it himself on JJ Redick's podcast that his number one thing he needs to work on is fitness. He said his words out of his mouth were, I get tired. He's like, I get tired. What? At 7'5"? How many minutes a game is this kid going to be able to play at 7'5"? I can't see him being able to play more than 30 minutes a game his rookie season, and potentially even as he gets older, his body's going to break down.
He's going to a great organization.
That's
talent development with Greg Popovich and with that staff that he has. That is an elite coaching staff. They will have him in uber shape. I promise you. And they know what they're doing. And for Popovich to be excited, it's a special dude.
I know
the key point is.
I know another guy who's what, 7'3", something like that, who averaged about 23, 22 points prior to coming to the NBA, 10 boards a game. And that man is Bol. And I don't see anybody losing their shit over Bol. And that's what I have as Victor Wembanyama's floor, since you weren't able to answer that, Chris, is I have Wembanyama's floor as being Bol.
All right, I'll tell you this. I'll have him for his floor. For me, I'll say Yao Ming. And Yao Ming could play. But Yao Ming had also injury and fitness issues himself at times. But when he was on the court, he was a beast.
So,
but I'll say him as my floor.
So I have some concerns here. I'm more Chris than I am Al. But I'm not completely ready to call him the next big thing. Listen, I have his ceiling as Kevin Garnett plus.
And Kevin Garnett, is he not a top 50 player of all time?
Dude, I'm saying if everything works out for him, I have him as Kevin Garnett. Chris, I'm more bullish on him than Al. I'm more leaning you than not. But I have concerns of the 7'5" frame holding up over time. And sometimes what happens, and we've seen this in the past, is, we mentioned putting weight on. He's going to have to put weight on. And sometimes the body breaks down at that size. That's my concern with him, is the body breaking down.
Right. I get that. But he's not playing a traditional center position. He might not even be playing a full-time center in the NBA at all.
I understand, but that may be even more of the problem. I think it may be more of the problem if he's running up and down the floor handling the basketball. Like, that's
he's where run back and forth. He still has to defend.
Well, if he's not even playing, if he's playing around the perimeter, he's only going to run the shortest distance on the court, 3 point to 3 point. He's not going to be
handling the ball, and he's running in transition. You think Shaq was running the floor when the fast break was going?
Yeah, but he's not even the same kind of player as Shaq.
I know, but I'm saying the big man tradition. I'm saying he's still going to have.
He's not a true big man. This is the issue. We keep talking about him in comparison to others. He has the potential to make his own path. He has the potential to going forward to set the bar for future NBA players. Okay? I'll tell you this right now. Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren in 5 years will be the face of the NBA. And I've been saying it for a long time to you two. In that same time frame, maybe a little bit longer, but around that same time frame, a 6'10" player in the NBA will be looked at as the standard. 6'9" will be small. And it's all going to be as a result of these kind of cats like these two dudes.
Yeah, but they don't grow on trees.
But guess what? They don't grow on trees. But what's going to happen is guys that are big like them are going to start developing those similar skill sets. Now they're not coached to do that. They're going to soon be. You think guys were coached to be shooting threes from half court before Steph got out here?
You can't teach size.
No, but I'm saying you can teach a different kind of skill set with that size.
Sure.
You're not being taught that skill set now at 7'2", 7'3". You're being taught to be a true center on average, not a shooter, not a
Not
guy
as
that's
much
going to be a perimeter
anymore.
player.
It's transitioning.
What's my point though? So by that time, in 5-6 years, I feel like he has the potential to set the bar for what teams in the NBA will look for.
Sure. Listen, and more likely than not, he's going to become a star. I'm with you on that. I'm just saying I do have some concerns about the frame and what's going to come with it. And that's why my floor, if the body breaks down and he can't stay healthy, my floor is Sean Bradley.
That's a totally different player. It's a
This is a
totally
joke,
different
bro.
player.
But what I
This is
mean
a
is,
joke.
first of all, Sean Bradley's career. I looked at his NBA reference. It wasn't as bad as I thought he was.
No, but come on, dude.
But listen, what's wrong with if his floor, if nothing pans out? Sean Bradley had a year where he was 15-9 and 3 blocks.
Dude, this is embarrassing.
Listen, we're talking bottoming out.
We're going to compare.
We're talking about bottoming out. If he bottoms out,
Chris, you can't see this. I mean, this dude is
No.
7'5". He's slow. Who's going to defend? How's he going to handle a pick and roll?
Dude, I probably watched him. I watched Chet play like a couple times in high school when he's on ESPN and stuff. I'm not going out searching for him and all that kind of stuff to find where he's playing at. But a couple times when they've had his showcase games on, I watched him and I said, this guy is going to be he's going to be a perennial all-star because he has that rare combination of height and he can move with the height, he can guard with the height, and he can also play with guys on the perimeter. And Wembanyama's even bigger and better and more consistent than Chet was. Wembanyama, I'm not trying to say I'm Fran Fraschilla by any stretch, but I've seen him play a good amount of times. And a good amount of times I've watched him and I've said, oh my God, there's nobody like this person on earth.
sure, and I agree with you. I'm just saying the health part of the body. That's all I'm saying. If he stays healthy, he's going to be that guy. I'm with you. But the body can break down. Let's move on for time's sake.
My ceiling real quick is a not as good Kevin Durant.
So you're Kevin Durant minus, I'm Kevin Garnett plus.
I'm like,
Al's going to have a CVS style receipt for this one.
Oh no, you're gonna be all that crow. You're gonna be yum 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 yum. All that crow.
You're gonna have one of them long ass cash back receipts with the coupons on the bottom and everything.
Big old window curtain.
Let's go to Brandon Miller at number 2. Gets taken to going to Charlotte, where he'll play alongside LaMelo Ball. Obviously had the shadow with everything that happened with Alabama and the murder trial. 6'9", 3-4 wing, whatever you want to call it at this point in time. Al, give me your ceiling and your floor for Brandon Miller.
How can you take anything this dude says or does seriously when he calls George the GOAT? That's number one. That's the first thing.
No, he said a lot of. You also saw what he said about the other day, how the Hornets are going to be in the finals next year.
Oh, but you got to say that. I don't care.
What did he say with the GOAT?
In the playoffs.
He called Paul George the GOAT.
Well, no, but he also said that Jordan aired a free throw or a shot in his warm up. I mean his workout. Like, how you going to snitch on Jordan like that?
Yeah. So this kid is a clown. He has the issues at Alabama. He flamed out in the tournament. I don't care. You can say that he had a hurt groin or whatever, but he was 13.7 points a game on 19.5% shooting in the tournament in 3 games. Only 9 points in the Sweet 16 loss to San Diego State. I don't think he can be the guy. And if he can't be the guy with the number 2 pick when you potentially have a guy right underneath him in Scoot Henderson that can be, what are you doing if you're Charlotte? He's skinny. He needs to muscle up. I don't know who he matches up with on defense. My floor for him is like bad Cam Reddish. And my ceiling for him is
That's redundant.
Yeah, well, that shows how low the floor is, I think. And then the ceiling for him, I think, is like Brandon Ingramish.
I'll just say Paul George for his ceiling for me, but for me, I think his floor will probably be like a Rudy Gay, I guess. I'm not as sold on him as Wembanyama or Henderson, but you're right, Al. He says some questionable stuff, man, and that makes me concerned with his maturity. Obviously, his decision making has been questioned at this point based on what happened allegedly with him, dealing with the situation in college. But I mean, Did you see the video, the clip of the Hornets draft party when they were like, "All right, yep." They
Yeah.
wanted Scoot.
The Hornet mascot put his head in his hand.
Yeah, they wanted Scoot. Now, Scoot's fit would have been weird with LaMelo, I think, but I get what they're doing with the LaMelo Brandon Miller combination, but I this one I kind of agree with you, Al. I got to see how it plays out because he could be really good, but he also could be just a jag in the NBA.
Yeah,
We'll
I
see.
agree.
I think we're 3 for 3 here. I'm in the same boat, not completely on board. I have a ceiling as Andrew Wiggins, who again, not to knock him, let's forget Andrew Wiggins was the second best player on a championship team less than about a year ago.
Yep.
My floor is Josh Jackson, who came out of Kansas, was number 4 overall pick, bounced around from team to team, never became anything. I think he probably falls more in the Wiggins area, but again, I do have some concerns with. Again, we talk about loser mentality. For you to flame out in the tournament like he did, that shows me some things. Teams see something on the scouting report that's a weakness. But we have to remember at the same time, these kids are 18, 19 years old, and there's plenty of time for them to figure it out. But I don't necessarily love, again, from a maturity standpoint, him and LaMelo together.
Yeah.
Well, basketball fit, I like it, but off the court, I don't know. You might be right on that. I don't know how that's going to work out.
I could see him running out his rookie deal and then going somewhere with a better veteran presence where he can just fit into a role and putting together a nice little career, or at least for a few years. But I don't think he's going to do anything in Charlotte.
All right, let's jump to Scoot Henderson. He goes number 3 to Portland. Obviously, some talk there with Dame Lillard of trading that pick and a handful of teams, but they end up going with Scoot, who played in the G League last year rather than going to college. To me, I think Scoot looks like he's got a high floor. I don't see a situation where he becomes an NBA bust. He's got a good motor. Size wise, I do wish he probably had another inch or two on him. I think he's listed at 6'2". So I do wish he had some size there. I have a ceiling as Russell Westbrook. And I say that with, let's not forget again, prime Russell Westbrook could play. I'm not talking about Russell Westbrook now. I'm talking about 2012, 2013 Russell Westbrook, the guy who was the real deal. And I have his floor as post knee surgery Derrick Rose. So not MVP Derrick Rose, but the guy who was the 6th man coming off the bench for 16, 17 points per game for the Knicks, for Minnesota, who did his thing as a 6th man, who was a complete spark plug. So I think if everything goes wrong, I still think he's that type of player for the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, I love Scoot. I mean, in other drafts, he probably could have been the number 1 pick. Obviously, this draft he couldn't have been, but he's very capable of carrying that weight. He's a dog, and I say that in a totally endearing fashion. He is a gym rat. He's a dog. He's a guy I would love on my team any day. I actually don't disagree with the Westbrook comparison. I also don't disagree, Seltzer, as far as his bust meter being very low. I don't see him being someone who we're like, wow, Scoot Henderson, remember that dude? Like, I feel like he is going to be an all-star player. He is going to be a franchise guy. I'm curious to see how it works out with Portland. I don't think Dame is going to be there. So
I think trade deadline he's gone.
I don't even know if he'll make it to October. He keeps flirting with the Heat and all kind of stuff keeps coming. I'm kind of over it, honestly. And
Everybody is.
Dame is like one of my favorite guys in the league, but it's getting kind of annoying. Like figure it out one way or the other. Let's just like move on. And but either way, Henderson for me, I'll stick with that Westbrook comparison. I actually like the Derrick Rose one too. Trying to think if there's anybody else that I could see him. I mean, he has a potential. He's got to get a little bit better with his jumper, but he can score at any level. He's not a great shot maker yet from 3, but he will get there. I think he'll get to like 37, 38%, which is what around NBA average.
Better, yeah.
And then he's obviously very athletic. He can score around the rim, mid range, this and that. But I like him a lot. I like him a lot.
I think he dazzles you with his personality. He's the biggest personality in the room.
That too, yeah.
He got a chip on his shoulder. My question is, can he mature in the sense that can he get around to the fact and realize that he can't beat everyone one-on-one all the time, which seems to be kind of his go-to move right now as a youngster, because he's so quick and he's so dynamic. Chris, I'm with you. Portland has to do something here because him and Dame as a backcourt don't work. They're like, what's Portland doing here? Are they
And Simons is ready to start.
And Simons is there too. You're right. And so what are they trying to do with a backcourt of three guys that are barely taller than I am? For me, my floor for him is like an Isaiah Thomas, the later version of Isaiah Thomas, not the legend Isaiah Thomas. So like a guy that can come off the bench or even start and just like kind of cook. You know what I mean? Throw up 20, 25, 30, and feel like it's like, whoa, what happened? My ceiling for him is a Ja Morant with a straight head. Because I feel like he's a guy that he's going to be able to get to the bucket. He's a dog, like you said, Chris. He's going to give you his all pretty much every single second of every single game that he plays. And I think Ja does that same thing. So hopefully, like I said, he can keep his head on straight, though. That's the ceiling.
And he's got a basketball pedigree. His family's his brothers and sisters played. His dad owns a gym in Georgia. He's there all the time.
Yeah.
I would not worry about his work ethic at all.
I'm pulling for him. The only thing that worries me is the size. Adam said it. 6'2" is 6'2". I mean,
but he's a strong 6'2".
He's a strong 6'2", but he's still 6'2". I mean, the league's getting bigger. 6'2" is the new 5'11".
Well, and exactly to what we said earlier. I mean, 6'2" in a couple of years might be like borderline where you can't even play in the NBA anymore.
Yeah, at least he's not 7'5". But
Facts. All right, quickly, I want to 5 minutes or less touch on the Porzingis trade to Boston. Porzingis goes to Boston along with 2 first-round picks for Marcus Smart. The deal originally, obviously, Malcolm Brogdon falls through due to some injury concerns. Porzingis, 28 years old, averaged 23 and 8 last year, 38% from 3. He's entering the final year of a $36 million contract, although the rumors are the Celtics will extend him. Limited playoff experience, and Boston gets rid of one of their big guys in Marcus Smart. Just initial, like I said, quick 5-minute thoughts on the deal.
I don't know who Boston's ball handler is going to be now, but it's an upgrade as far as top to bottom personnel because they're guard heavy. Derek White's better than Marcus Smart anyway. And you're talking about losing a locker room leader, and I get that, and a dog and a guy that's going to go out there and be kind of like the tough guy out there on the floor. But this is an area where you want now Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to step up. So if you get rid of Marcus Smart, I think the thought is maybe those guys can start to fill that role, which is what you would expect, especially a Jason Tatum to do at this point in his career.
Man, I love this trade as a Sixers fan. I could not be happier to get rid of Marcus Smart out of this conference. I think I disagree, Al, that Derek White is definitely, definitively better than Marcus Smart. I don't know about that. But I think they lose a lot of toughness. More importantly, as a basketball team, they lose a lot of chemistry. They're probably going to also lose Grant Williams at this point now, too. So, again, toughness and chemistry gone. Porzingis has had issues with health and being available at times in his career. Obviously, well documented. And I feel like they're kind of hitching to the Porzingis wagon a little bit too much here. I mean, if he has another issue where he has a health, situation where an injury or whatever plays out and he misses significant time, and are they going to have Horford back next year?
Yeah, Horford signed an extension.
He did sign it. Okay. But again, he's older, so I guess he's going to be what? I guess he's going to be coming off the bench now. And Williams and Porzingis starting at the top. I can't imagine him having Horford and Porzingis together.
Just a stymie.
I think they could play all three. I think they can pair any of them together. But I would guess that Horford would come off the bench, or Williams might come off the bench.
I just don't see him fitting the mentality of that team. I don't see him as a dog like those other guys that they have. They have a whole room full of dogs on that team, which is why I hate them, but I respect them. And Porzingis, to me, does not fit that mold. I feel like this is equivalent to when we signed Horford and thought he could be something, and we tried to talk ourselves into him being something that he's not. I feel like that's what this is for Boston.
It's a fair point, Chris. To me, I think they'll miss Marcus Smart a lot, especially in the locker room. Al mentioned that Tatum and Brown now have the opportunity. I don't think Tatum has that kind of personality. I think it's similar to Embiid. Like, I don't think Embiid is meant to be the leader of a basketball team as much as he is just meant to be the best player on a basketball team. I think they'll miss Smart in that regard, but I think it's a move that they had to make because you look at it, that front line, Grant Williams was going to leave. I think they were tired of his act, his talking. Somebody was going to pay him something that the Boston Celtics didn't want to pay him. And now you're looking at a front line of Robert Williams, who, when he was on the court, he's great, but he can't seem to stay on the court. And even in the playoffs, he couldn't play more than 25 minutes in a game because of his knees. And how much longer can you ride Al Horford? Again, Al Horford's playing 35 minutes in the playoffs. He's going to be 30, 34, 35 this year, maybe even older than that at this point. So how many more years can you ride Al Horford for 82 games before the wheels come completely off? So I think they needed something on the front line to provide some depth there. And Al, you were right. They do have a gluttony of guards. They have Smart. They had Smart. They have Brogdon. They have White. They even have Peyton Pritchard, who I think can play too.
I disagree with that.
Not
to the level of what they're used to.
But the majority of Smart's minutes will be given to White and Brogdon, and then Pritchard's going to be asked to play 12 minutes a night, which he's perfectly capable of.
Well, he also said he wanted out earlier this offseason. So I don't know if that's changed now because we thought Brogdon was leaving and maybe it would help Pritchard to get a role. But now that he's still there and Smart being out, I mean, he was never going to play for Smart anyway.
Right.
But I don't know if that changes Pritchard's role at this point now based on what they actually ended up doing.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he would want to just play, and then now the opportunity may be in front of him. Listen, it makes Boston better on paper, but it's just a matter of how it fits. But they needed to add to the front line. So,
in my opinion, they had to make a move, like you said, Adam. They weren't ready to move either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. They're two superstars, and the reason why they lost to Miami is because they couldn't shoot for 3 games, the first 3 games of the series. So they bring in offense. They trade a little bit of the grit for offense. That's how I look at this trade.
But you trade your heart and soul of your team for Kristaps Porzingis? Like, that's the guy you're waiting to trade Marcus Smart for? Like, for the Grizzlies, I think it's a great trade. They get a veteran in there that's a leader. They now have the last 2 defensive player of the years on their starting 5.
Memphis is going to love Marcus Smart.
I think it's an awesome fit for Memphis. Great trade for them. But the Celtics, man, I got questions. They better hope that assuming we stay where we're at right now, they better hope they see us before they see Milwaukee, because Giannis is going to eat Kristaps.
You might be right about that. All right, so that'll wrap up segment 2. Segment 3, July 4th is right around the corner. You're probably having a barbecue, going to the pool. What do you need to put on your summer playlist? We're going to discuss that segment 3. Welcome back to segment 3. I mentioned earlier, it's July 4th next week, boys. Pools are open. You're eating the burgers. You're eating the dogs. The music's playing in the background. Time to put together the summer song list.
Not if you're a Guest's barbecue, because we learned that Guest is only serving all vegan meat.
That's not true. That's
the Impossible Burgers.
Far from the truth. Those fake news you got, bro.
I had a good time putting this list together, but I was a little bit stuck because, Al, it's so hard not to put just the summer songs from the summer that you're down the shore and that resonate with you, and to kind of take it all in and encapsulate all the songs over a historic era of time.
The way I looked at this is I try to put songs that, like, if I'm at the pool, sitting poolside, or if I'm at the beach, sitting in my beach chair, or if I'm even just in the car driving around on a hot sunny day and I have my windows down, what songs do I want to hear? That's how I tried to attack it.
Okay, so you're taking it more that as instead of necessarily like this was a song of the summer in 2012.
Right, because it's a playlist. So to the listeners at home, we're going to put together a playlist and send the link out so you can listen to the 3K summer playlist.
Yeah,
so I think I got kind of caught. I think I got kind of stuck in the middle.
Okay.
So I have some that are in that realm, and I have some that are just like this was a song of the summer in X year. And
I'm gonna give y'all range on my list.
Well, and here's the other thing you have to give us, Chris, is when I put this playlist together, I'm going to need you to upload the 3K beat to Spotify, because that's going to have to open the playlist.
Love that.
I got you. I might make a summer remix.
I'll pepper in some of our best and worst quotes, like the Rock's theme song used to do.
The Rock says, I might make a summer remix and have just like waves in the background of the beat.
All right, let me start it off because I made a faux pas last week by saying something I shouldn't. But I'm going to start it off with a person of color this week.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
And while this song is probably not a one that comes to the top of your head, it's a perfect song if you're sitting on your deck and you're reading a book or you're sipping on a beer. And I'm going to go with Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. It's a fantastic song.
Love it.
It puts you at peace. You never want to turn it off. You're never pressing the skip button when that song comes up. And it's a song that's not from our era. That even makes it even more powerful that that's the case.
So that's also on my list, and it's like it's like really high on it. I don't know if you guys know. Do you know the story of that song, specifically the whistle part?
No.
So at the end, when Otis Redding is whistling, after I guess it'll be the second verse, or after the bridge after the second verse, he whistled the vocal melody and was going to come back to record it. And he had went to, I forget where he was going to on the road, and flew, and he ended up dying in the plane crash. He never made it back to record it. And the studio kept the whistling on the track in tribute to him not being able to finish the record.
Dude,
which I thought was a really cool but also sad fact about that record. But that's a great one, Seltzer. I love that one.
I knew Seltzer was going to pick that because whether you did it knowingly or not, you were whistling that earlier when we were off not recording.
I was humming it earlier.
I
thought about that
I
too.
didn't catch that.
So I knew you were going that route. But that's an earworm, man. That whistle that stays in your head.
Yeah,
that's a great song. Chris, why don't you go next?
So I'm gonna go. We talked about this song actually previously on here on the show.
Well, wait, Chris, can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's try to keep in mind, like, putting this together in some sort of sense, because I'm putting this playlist together in the order that you got, that we're all taking these songs.
Oh, so we're gonna go Otis at the top.
Yeah, now we have to.
Otis opener.
All right. So I'm gonna go Summertime, Will Smith.
Yeah.
That's got to be a consensus. I thought that would be it's not a draft we're doing, but that was going to be like the LeBron of this, I thought. But
yeah, I think if we were drafting, I think it's the first overall pick.
Yeah.
I have a confession. I don't love that song.
What?
I don't love it either, but it's the ultimate summer song. Like when you hear it for the first time in the middle of May and the weather's perfect, you'll bang it.
100%. I totally agree with that.
The other thing is the song that they sampled for that, I believe it was Kool and the Gang, I believe, is also, I mean, you could argue that you could put that on the list also, which is, it's like an instrumental, but that song vibes, dude. That's a vibe with that song. But yeah, dude, I can't believe you said that, man. Really? You're not that big on that?
Because you know what it is? I still listen to the radio a lot, and I know I'm in the minority there, but when I'm in my car, I listen to the radio a lot. I don't have Sirius. I don't normally listen to my phone unless I'm listening to the 3K podcast. But come May, Adam, like in June, it gets played so much. Like it's almost like All I Want for Christmas Is You in December. Where it's just always on. So it's kind of ruined it for me a little bit, but I respect that it's number one. It's number one, no doubt.
All right, Al, what do you got what's the third track?
So for the third track, I gotta kind of keep it in the same almost like mellow feel here that we have going, this mellow vibe. And I'm gonna go, I think I mentioned him last week. Well, I shouldn't say him, but Mungo Jerry, In the Summertime, which I just found out today when I was doing a little research, that Mungo Jerry is not one guy, it's the entire band.
That's the band name.
So I didn't know that either.
It's the opposite of Eagle Eye Cherry, where I thought like it's the same thing as Eagle. No, it's the opposite.
No, it's the opposite.
Cherry was a band, and that's one guy. So In the Summertime, just a feel good track. I
don't know if I know. It might be
I'm
a song
not a fan of that
didn't know what it was called.
Oh, I love that. In the summer,
you don't know what it is, Chris?
When the women are fine.
Yeah, it's from it's Wedding
okay.
Crashers, isn't it?
I don't know. Is it?
I think it is when they're riding bikes.
It could be. It could be. That's part of the movie that I probably take a leak when that part's on. But so it was written and composed by the lead singer while he was working his second job at Timex. It took him 10 minutes to write, and the original song was only 2 minutes long. So to make it longer to appease the record label, they just took the entire 2 minutes and just doubled it.
It sounds like something we would have did back in the day.
They just added some like different sound effects and different like cuts in the beat to the second half.
Yeah.
And in between those two halves, there's a sound effect of a motorcycle revving its engine. However, it's not actually a motorcycle because none of the guys owned a motorcycle. So it's just one of the guys' sports cars, and they had to go outside and hold a microphone up to the sports car to record. That's how old this song is, how long ago.
I love those kind of stories, man.
That's great.
I love that.
All right, so that's the third song. We have a little hip hop, we have a little R&B. It's time for some country. We got to mix it up. And listen, it's a summer song.
You know what, Seltzer? I'll be honest, my black ass, I kind of dig country in the summertime. Certain country, not the twangy country. I like the rock country.
You like pop country?
Listen,
yeah, I like the country like for like before football games country. Like that's what I like. I don't like the whole
Carrie Underwood country.
The song in the bar that gets the people going in the summertime is "Chicken Fried" by the Zac Brown Band.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually a good song. I didn't think about that. That's a good summer song.
It's a really good summer song.
She'd approve that definitely. So
put that on the list as number 4. We're going with "Chicken Fried." Again, everybody's just singing it when you're in the bar. I have one other country song on my list that I'll probably go to later, but Chicken Fried's got to be the number 1.
Well, how many tracks we going with this playlist?
We're just gonna keep going until I'm assuming you're keeping an eye on the time. Like we'll just keep going until it feels like it's time to wrap it up.
So let's go with you talking about Sirius Radio, Al. So I'm the opposite of you. I only listen to XM. I can't listen to regular radio anymore. So I'm a big yacht rock guy.
Oh, who is it?
Yacht rock is solid, but yacht rock's solid.
So I go sailing, take me away, sailing Christopher Cross. I love that song. With the you remember Al, you might remember this on Puffy's album Forever, the second album he did.
Yeah.
And he had the song Best Friend.
Yeah.
About God and his relationship with God. And he used sailing as the sample.
I got to re-listen to it because I never
it's the sample for sailing. And I'm the only person on earth that heard sailing. And the first thing I thought of when I first heard it was, yo, that's Puff's joint.
I like that song. I think that's the last song on the album, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you and me might be two of the only fans of that album.
Yeah. Oh, the Puff one. Yeah. It's if it's not the last one, it's the second to last one.
Yeah.
It might have been like a what was the one that he had with what was her name? The Public Enemy #1.
Yeah. It was Redman's sister.
Yeah, what was her name?
Check me out right here, bye.
You're number 1 right now.
It was so I'll remember it as we keep going on.
Yeah, that might have been the last track. I forget, but yeah, dude, I love the yacht rock. I'm a big yacht, specifically in the summer.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with yacht rock. Going back to our older things that we don't pay for, I refuse to pay for Sirius. once my free subscription ran out when I first bought my car, that was it.
Yeah, man, you gotta get that. What I said, $5 a month for life or whatever I got now. It's worth it. You don't even know you spent the money.
All right, I'm running out of songs that are really going to transition here, so I think this one kind of fits. I'm going to go with Ace of Base, The Sign.
Oh.
That song just screams summer to me, and it might be, Adam, we talked about a little bit before about how like I'm just reliving my summer as maybe I was 8 years old when that song was out. But for me, that Ace of Base is just like synonymous with summer. They had a few singles. The Sign was the biggest one of a lot of the songs I looked at. This was the only one that was number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. And it's actually about a breakup.
I was gonna say, what is it about? I never really.
The sign is like the sign that they had to break up. That's
Right, and it opened up my eyes.
yeah. I never put that together until I was doing a little research.
Is that a summer song though?
I think so. I think it's a summer
I
song.
mean, any Ace of Base song you can't go wrong with for a summer vibe to it. That
Yeah,
was actually a little bit Chris Guest trivia. That was one of my first cassettes I bought from the wall.
but it's got like the kind of the green and pink flower and like the
Yeah.
blue faces. Yeah,
Dude, and that album had bangers on it. That album had like 4 or 5 hit singles on it.
All that she wants.
Yeah.
Don't Turn Around was on it. The sign originally wasn't going to be on it. It was going to be on their next album, but the record company heard it and they're like, no, we got to put that on this one.
Yeah. I think Living in Danger, I think it was called. That was, I don't know if that was a single or not, I forget, but that was my favorite song on that album. But yeah, Ace of Base was they slapped a little bit, man. That was
I can't, and Adam, I mean, you chime in here. I can't imagine listening to the sign in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I mean, I have heard it before in the wintertime.
Well, it's got that reggae vibe to it. They were what were they from Sweden?
Sweden.
And they had like a reggae undertone to their music. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Weren't they also It's a Beautiful Life?
Yes.
Yeah. That's actually I like that more than the sign.
Yeah.
Personally.
Oh, listen, the sign is just to me, it's just a summer song.
That's fair. All right, Chris.
6. So let's go with I guess being in.
No, you screwed this up, Seltzer. You're next.
Who Chris pick second?
Yes, just pick
Sailing.
Sailing.
Okay. I'm gonna go with a song. You know, Al, you mentioned being 8 years old and hearing songs. One song that my mom, rest in peace, was a huge fan of and played all the time in the summertime. She especially played it for my sister Adrian, was Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. Fantastic song. Originally, Chris, I'm sure you know this, the song was originally titled Brown Skin Girl.
I think I did hear that before, actually.
It was about an interracial relationship, and then in order to clean it up and get it on radio, they changed it to Brown Eyed Girl. But really, really good tune from Van Morrison. We used to play it a bunch down the shore. I think it's got to be on the list. Just so upbeat and brings the juice.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. It definitely has a summer vibe to it more than anything else. Yeah.
Al's smiling like he has some thoughts on it.
No, good, because I got a song that's going to go with that. But if Chris picks something weird here, it's going to mess it all up.
Should you forfeit your pick, Chris, so Al can transition us here?
Well, I mean, we don't have to go in order for just go ahead, go for it, whatever.
So Van Morrison, Jackie Wilson said.
Yeah.
Like Chris, I know you're not a big Sea Isle guy, but you go to the OD, you're slapping the ceiling to that song all day. So I'm glad that you picked Brown Eyed Girl, but I was a little bit of a crunch there. I had to cut the line there, guest, because we can't have this playlist without a little Jackie Wilson said.
There you go. I was just gonna say "School's Out for Summer" by Alice Cooper.
I hate that song. I hate it so much.
I ever since I was probably in high school, and even to this day, I have to play that every time we get out of school. Or even before I was back in the education sector, I would still play it around the time that my wife got out of school from teaching, for when she got home. And even just, driving around, or if you're outside or whatever, like it's a great summer song. And you don't have to be just a kid to appreciate it. I mean, adults very much still appreciate that song from when they were kids themselves, or if they're teachers, or if they're, parents, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it hits different when you're a teacher. I play it every year on the last day.
I can't stand that song.
Bang it all the way home, dude.
All right, yeah. I wanted to transition into some cheesy pop music, but
I got a couple for you.
It's hard to do that after school's out for summer. So I'm gonna kind of stay along the same vibe. I'm gonna go with "Cruel Summer" by Bananarama.
I thought about that one.
I'm a huge fan. They just came out with somebody else just came out with like a remix to it. They redid it.
Well, I know Taylor Swift has a "Cruel Summer," but I don't think it's the same vibes.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else then. I thought somebody else had just redone it. Let me Google it actually.
No, I thought about that one myself too. For it didn't it didn't make my original. I tried to put like 10 songs together for this, uh, but I had a hard cutoff. So but I totally dig it. I would vibe to it on a made playlist that we have.
Yeah, it's a solid pick.
Yeah.
I was never enamored with that song, but
I'm a fan. Can we get into the cheesy pop, please?
Yeah.
I got my big three are not cheesy pop, but pop-ish.
Am I up?
Yeah.
So well, I guess you could say that. A secret guilty pleasure of mine is I'm a big Harry Styles fan.
Oh, he's
on
great.
On the low.
Harry's
Watermelon Sugar is my song.
good song.
Yeah.
I love that song. That album is awesome. And actually my niece is a flight attendant, and she does some private flights sometimes. So she had Harry Styles one time for his private flight that he had overseas, and she said that he was a really cool guy, but him and his friends, they kept for like literally like half the flight talked about and ate cereal.
That's such a dude thing, though.
They were so lit.
Do you know what that song's about?
Yes, we can't really talk about that on here.
Just making sure.
Yeah, but you can imagine.
All right. Well, this is going to go away from like newer music, but I think it fits well for after Watermelon Sugar, and that's MGMT Electric Feel.
I don't know if I know what that is.
You definitely know what it is. So they had 3 singles. They had Kids, Time to Pretend, and Electric Feel. And I think in the US, Electric Feel was the 3rd most popular of the 3. But MGMT just reminds me, all 3 songs bring me back to summer in my 20s. All 3 songs, anytime they come on the radio, or if they're at a party or a bar, I am all in on them playing the song. So the rumor about the song, Chris, is that MGMT were like 2 weird dudes. They were weird.
Right.
And they wanted to make a typical, quote, typical pop song to make fun of pop music at the time. And that's what Electric Feel was. So it was supposed to be like a sarcastic song, like, oh, this is like a shitty song. Let's see, like this is how shitty pop music is these days. And it ended up blowing up because it's a great.
It ended up being exactly that. It was
exactly
kind of what it was supposed to go against.
And it's been covered by Katy Perry, Frank Ocean, and Beck. Just
what a random trio. What would they ever have in common? Any of them?
Little lethal lottery there for you.
Yeah, my God. That goes to the range of the creativity though that you can come up with for that record then, because those 3 are totally on different spectrums.
Yeah.
All right. My next 2 are going to be cheesy pop songs. And I have one from the summer between 8th and 9th grade. And I have another one that was the first summer I spent in Sea Isle in 2012. But I'm going to go 2012 first. And the song of that summer was Call Me Maybe.
Yeah.
It was a banger. Still is a song that I think is decent, but it just reminds me of summer every time it's on. It's got such the upbeat song. Carly Rae Jepsen, probably you could call her a one-hit wonder. I think she had one other song after that was like may have gotten some traction.
She's a one-hit wonder.
Canadian Idol winner, I believe.
Is it?
I think she won the American Idol version in Canada. Before that song came out, obviously, but yeah.
That song was huge. That song.
There was a lot of big songs. That was a good summer for music. A lot of summer anthems, I remember. Yeah. But that's a great pick. That's a song that I feel like it blew up, got old, like everybody hated it, and now it's back because it's like now it's so long ago that.
And I agree, and not only that, but for me at least, it's a song that if you're out and you're at a party or you're at the bar, whatever, it hits. But if you're by yourself or in the car or something, I probably change it. But I agree. Fun song. It's a fun song with other people. It's a communal song.
I agree with that.
Agreed. Yeah. On the same page.
All right, Guest, you're up.
How about let's go back to hip hop. Let's go to The Recipe by Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar. You guys familiar with The Recipe?
I'd have to hear it.
A little new or not new, but
you're gonna have to. Yeah, so it's one of, I believe it was. Actually, I don't want to say that because I don't know if Kendrick had I know a lot of his I don't say underground, but stuff that he had before he blew up and became like an A-list guy. That was like his first, I believe, like his first big full blown crossover hit with Dre. And you'll know when you hear it, but we had to get our budget up to be able to get the audio on this, John.
Yeah. We
So
did try. We tried earlier to include the audio for these tracks.
yeah,
And,
y'all gotta go on YouTube or Spotify or something.
Al, are you really gonna put together a Spotify list?
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Yeah. I'll share the link out with all the listeners.
So make sure you follow us on Twitter or Instagram. We'll tweet out the playlist for you to play at your barbecue this week.
It's got that California vibe to it. So it's like California vibe always is
West
like
Coast.
Yeah, the West Coast, everything is sunny. You got the palm trees, you got the partying, the hanging out, everything like that. So it's got that vibe always to it. So yeah, for me, it's one of my favorite songs, period, let alone in the summertime.
How many are we up to,
Al? After Chris's pick, that was 14. So this will
All
be
right,
15.
let's do you and then everybody do one more.
All right. So I got to get this one in. This has potentially become my favorite song, period. And it started out with like maybe 10, 12 years ago or so. I have a notepad list on my phone of all songs that I would always play on Touch Tunes whenever I was at a bar with the Touch Tunes on it. And every time I put this song on, it was one of those songs where everybody was like, oh shit, I forgot about that song. Now it's come around lately where it's been getting a little bit more play. It was in a commercial lately. And I think I've mentioned it on the pod before, but Len, Steal My Sunshine is an undeniable summer song. And again, no bullshit might be my favorite song.
Well, they say you can't even the play button don't work after Labor Day. You can't even play
it. I believe it. Dude, I'm so envious of Len, first of all, because they lived the dream. They were a true bona fide one-hit wonder, and that was it. You never saw them again. So they were
still making royalties,
famous.
hopefully.
Super famous for like 2 years, and then they got to live their lives again, like just go out and go to the grocery store again. The song is about a rave and then the after effects of going to that rave. And the video has a pretty famous story, somewhat famous, of where the record label just gave Len, the group, $100,000, and they were like, go make a music video. So they flew to Daytona Beach during spring break with 24 of their friends and basically just spent all the money on alcohol. And they bought so much alcohol that they tried to get into the elevator of the hotel, and the elevator wouldn't lift up because they had too much alcohol on the elevator. And that was the whole video, them drinking and riding around on ATVs or whatever they were riding around on.
I'm going to watch the video after this is over.
I think they were on regular bikes on the boardwalk, weren't they?
Yeah, dude, they literally were just among spring breakers. That was the video. Yeah. They were just boozing.
And they just had slow motion in certain parts to it.
Like it's the dream for if you're in your 20s and you're Canadian, you're coming down to Daytona Beach with $100,000 in your pocket.
Yeah, that is a dream.
That's I love that song.
Yeah, that was on my list too, Al. It's literally for me, like I can't listen to it if it's not the summer because I get depressed that it's not summer. I literally can't listen to it unless it's summertime.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I was going to go Cheesy Pop, and again, that year out, I think Len, Steal My Sunshine was the same year as the song that I was going to pick. I think they're too similar to put back to back, so I'm going to skip them. But I was going to go with LFO Summer Girls, which is probably one of the worst lyrical pieces to ever be written, but still a great summer song.
Weren't you a big Girl on TV guy?
I think that's better than Summer Girls. I think that's better than Summer Girls.
On a side note, real quick before you keep going, Seltzer. Speaking of awfully written songs, so I'm in the car the other day, and My Humps comes on from Black Eyed Peas. That song, I turned them to Sarah, and I was like, "What were we doing in 2008 where this was a number one record? It's terrible.
That's
terrible."
Yeah,
Fergie got to do it all. I'm like, what are you like? What? That's the whole gist of the song.
Fergie had a run though, guest.
I know it's crazy. Like,
real quick, Adam, LFO. Do you know what it stood for?
When you say it, I'll know it. But hold on. No, when you say it, I'll know it.
It's so bad. Light, funky ones.
Yeah, terrible. I think the lead singer, died recently.
Yeah, recently. No, Rich, he died years ago.
Yeah.
The other dude just died. Another guy in the band.
Ugh, poor guys. All right, let me go. At this point, we're in song 15 or 16. You've probably been sipping on some beers. I don't think you're necessarily worried about the summer tune as much as you're trying to just keep the atmosphere going, keep the party going. So I'm going to go summer of 2013, another Sea Isle jam of the summer. I'm going with Clarity by Zed.
Oh, yo, I forgot about that. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That might not be a summer song. That's just a banger at any point, but it was
That's-
out in the middle of that summer. Just
Yeah.
that'll
That's
keep the
another one
party
that's
going.
such a communal song.
Was that like the same summer as like Bulletproof?
Yes,
Yeah, that summer was there was bangers that
Yeah.
summer, man.
that was a fantastic. I actually preferred Bulletproof to Clarity originally, but I've changed since then.
Clarity's a great song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the beat drops at the top,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm getting chills.
We got to up the budget, guys. We got to get an intern.
Well, hey, there's the open invitation to somebody.
yeah, if
Saber,
you
if you're
like the
listening.
pod and you want to get a job,
Yeah.
let us know if you have the skills. All right, Chris, and then Al will finish it off, and then maybe we'll do some honorable mentions didn't make the cut.
So I only have two more on my list. I'm going to go with this one here, and hopefully Al says the other one that I have to close it out. But I'm going to take you back to the 90s with a song that actually came back out and became a very popular from, I believe, TikTok a couple years ago, and that was My Boo by Ghost Town DJs.
Good song.
With the run, I don't know why somehow somebody came up with the Running Man dance to that song and put it on TikTok, and next thing you know, it recharted again.
Yep.
And it's just a fun 90s song. And of course, being a nostalgic lover that I am, especially the 90s, that's one of my favorite 90s records. So I listen to it all the time in the summertime also. And it's just a fun party summer vibe to it that it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, that was out the year Demands got married, and he got married in the summer. And then when we were all out there, like they played that song, we were all doing the Running Man.
Yeah, it was so strange how the way it came back all of a sudden. But
What's the
and then it was
original
funny
one?
because some
96?
kids 96, 97, something like that originally, yeah. And some kids thought it was a new song.
No, it was I think it was Michigan. I think it was basketball players on Michigan that did the video of them doing the Running Man to it, and then it just blew up from there.
Yeah. And I remember, before I got into that, into education, but Sarah had students who they thought that it was a new record. And she's like, that song was out when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to Google it right now real quick. I can't find it. But it was definitely I think it was a college. Yeah, Big Ten men's basketball. I don't know. Maybe that was where it started, maybe not. I don't know.
Might have been
I'll
like
close this
Cal
out.
State Fullerton, you don't know, whatever.
Dude, this is brutal to pick the last song. This is
Right.
tough. The song that I had in my top 5, I don't think I can pick to close this out.
Well, there's a clear closer.
Is there?
I think so.
I don't know, man. I have like 6, 7 more songs on my list, and I don't think any of these are really closer worthy.
I think there's a closer in there.
Actually,
I feel like
Wake Me Up When September Ends by Green Day.
No,
now that you mention it, it's a song that was not originally on my list, and it's from the 90s, and it's Tupac Changes.
Oh my God.
Drop
You
that.
with
Let's
the
drop that beat.
That'd be a perfect if we were gonna have a finale episode, that'd be the perfect line to the finale episode.
The Dave the Gnome theme song.
Wait, I might have to remix Dave the Gnome's theme music with the Changes lyrics. Like mash that up.
Dude, I'm struggling, guys. I really don't know if I can bear the weight of this. All right,
Well-
I'm gonna go with what I
Give it a shot. I mean, I'll tell you either way afterwards, regardless. But
I know it's not what you think I should pick. I'm gonna have to go with these guys. They were the kings of the summer. LMFAO Party Rock Anthem.
No, it's not.
I know it's not. All right, so can I get?
I'd
I'd
rather have changes. Oh.
But listen,
Yeah, I might actually be with you. I like the song Changes. I
so
just
here
didn't like
are
it for
the songs I'm
context of what
between.
you
I'm
said.
between that. I'm between Enrique Iglesias. I like it.
Well, hold on about Enrique. What about Bailamos? Lamos is a banger,
That was
dude.
that was the most American way to say that fucking word.
If you're going back that far, I'd almost go Ricky Martin, Living La Vida Loca.
That's another one.
I know, but dude. All right, so here's the one. Here's my top 5 that I didn't get in there. Party in the USA.
Yeah, that's on my list. I was trying to get that in there too.
All right, so I'm putting that in there then. That's got to be the last song then.
That's
Okay.
all right. That's a solid closer. That's not the one I was thinking of. But Seltzer, what do you think? Do you think of what? Do you think there's a clear closer?
I don't know what you're referring to.
I think you got to go. Boys of Summer, Don Henley.
Good,
Yeah.
good
Dude,
song.
the guitar riff there is like such a
Yeah.
finale guitar riff. Like, all right, guys, we're packing it up. But remember all the memories we had?
Oh, well, then should we
Like-
do Semisonic closing time?
That's just
Listen,
guitar.
Summer of '69 didn't make it either.
No, I thought
Kokomo.
about that.
I had Kokomo on there.
Kokomo.
Yes,
Wait, real quick. Party in the USA. Did you know that it originally was not a Miley Cyrus song?
I'm not surprised by that.
It was Jessie J. Do you remember Jessie J?
Yeah.
So she wrote it, but then she passed on it because her whole vibe at the time was she was a little more dark. And so she was like, this doesn't really fit my persona. But the original lyrics were about moving from the UK to Los Angeles. And so once she passed on it and Miley Cyrus took it on, they had to tweak it a little bit and they had to make it moving from Nashville to Los Angeles. And Miley Cyrus had admitted that she had never even heard a Jay-Z song prior to recording Party in the USA.
Yet the Jay-Z song was on.
It was on for the first time ever, I guess.
Wait, she never heard a Jay-Z song?
Yeah,
That's what she said in an interview.
can't be
That she never heard a Jay-Z song.
Oh, that's
That can't be
rough.
true.
That's a
Yeah.
L.
Yeah.
honorable mention didn't make it on my list. Under the Boardwalk by the Drifters.
Yeah, it was a little too old for me. I mean, I respect it, but a little too old for me to be putting on.
I had Hot in Here.
I
Nelly.
had that too. Yeah, that was
His
the
worst
last one I
song,
did,
though.
man.
That song
Yeah,
was-
I don't like the song either. It's just summer. My other country song was Cruise by Florida Georgia Line.
Cruise In, isn't it?
No, I think it's just Cruise.
I don't know about that.
Summer Love, Timberlake, because I felt like there needed to be Timberlake, but
That's good.
don't love the song. And that was all. That was it. That was my list.
I really wanted to get either a Kanye or Killer song on there, but neither one fits the mold for summer. The only ones I didn't mention were Tayo Cruz, Dynamite.
Good song.
I think that might have been the same summer, Adam.
Good.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I think that's 11. I think that's 11.
Okay. Katy Perry, Firework, and LMFAO, Shots. Were the only ones.
Shots
Yeah,
is a good one.
out there.
What about Turn Down for What?
Yeah.
But that was a winter song. That came out in the winter time.
Well, it could still be a summer banger.
I know, but I think about the winter with that one.
There was a Lil Jon song called "Get Out of Your Mind." That was a
Get
big,
out of your mind.
yeah, that was big. We used to dance on the island. Yeah, that was a big song.
Dude, Lil Jon's the man. Lil Jon
Get
is
Lucky,
like-
Daft Punk was also summer of 13.
Oh, and Thick.
Yeah, Blurred Lines.
Lines. Oh,
So true story about another summer song, Happy by Pharrell.
yeah.
I hated that song so much
No, that's
that I
awesome.
made a deal, worst deal I ever made in my life, that anytime it came on in the bar at Sea Isle, I didn't want anybody to enjoy it. So I would just buy everybody shots. We all had to go to the bar and I would just buy shots and you just ignored the song. I lost so much money that summer buying shots because that song was on.
Yeah, that song's awesome, man.
I hate that.
But
song.
they did play it a lot. They did play a lot. Al, also, you're a real one for saying thick because you go back with that because people don't realize that was what his name was in the very beginning when he first came out. It was just thick.
Yep.
It's
That
like
was
the Facebook.
Remember when? Because he had his first single was the da-da-da-da, when I get you,
When I get you alone. Yeah. See, we go back. We take it back on this show.
I didn't know that.
Speaking of take it back, Chris, the other rap song that we didn't mention, there was a couple, but the one that stood out to me was "Today Was a Good Day."
Yeah.
Lakers beat the Supersonics.
That's a huge summer song.
Yeah, man. That's a great song any day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So there you have it. Al, you put together the Spotify playlist.
Yep.
You guys can all play it this weekend at your barbecues, at your pools, whatever it is.
Yo, I can't get a burnt CD of this.
You got to trade a first round pick in fantasy football.
You gotta either guess you gotta get in touch with McManus or Lodge. Take your pick.
Gentlemen, I got that new 3 in the Keystone mixtape.
But happy holidays to everyone. We'll have an episode next week. You guys are good.
I don't know, man. We'll figure something out. I mean,
it's the birthday, the 1 year anniversary
Yeah,
episode.
we got to do it. We got to do
we're
it.
about to preempt this one, though. I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out.
We will catch y'all next week. Let's drop that beat.